With Godzilla 2000 failing to jumpstart Toho's new series the way the studio had hoped, thoughts of a direct sequel were scrapped and replaced with another standalone reboot with loose ties to the original. Screenwriters Hiroshi Kashiwabara and Wataru Mimura were retained, while some new blood was brought on in the form of director Masaaki Tezuka, whom had served as assistant director on many of the Heisei films. Together, the team attempted to inject some much-needed freshness into the series with Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, a film that instead ended up showing just how stale it was already starting to feel. Following a series of economy-crippling attacks by Godzilla, Japan creates an extreme new weapon to eliminate the monster for good, the Dimension Tide, a device capable of firing a miniature black hole with the hope of imprisoning him forever. However, the use of the weapon has unforeseen consequences in the form of the Meganulon, highly aggressive prehistoric dragonflies, which have been mutated and are now multiplying at a rapid rate. While the swarms of Meganula seek out Godzilla as an energy source for the Queen Megaguirus, the Dimension Tide proves to be Japan's last and only hope for eliminating both threats in one shot. Godzilla vs. Megaguirus is a return to the formula that had defined the Heisei series. Like the later entries of that series, it focuses on an anti-Godzilla agency and their attempts to eliminate Godzilla with a bold new piece of technology, while a new, more pressing threat arises in the form of another monster. This gives the film a very been-there, done-that feel that is amplified by a bland story and a monster so generic it feels like it belongs in a run-of-the-mill sci-fi movie. This is a shame because the premise of the film, for as formulaic as it is, has some elements that make it feel fresh. The Dimension Tide, while falling more in the realm of fantasy than sci-fi, is an undeniably intriguing concept. The idea of trapping Godzilla in a black hole and the potentially catastrophic existential consequences that could come from that has so much creative possibilities. This makes it all the more painful then that Godzilla vs. Megaguirus never plays with these possibilities, instead deciding to play it safe yet again. The characters reflect this, and are all one-dimensional, falling into the same tropes the franchise has been privy to time and time again. Masato Tanaka plays Major Kiriko Tsujimori, captain of the G-Grasper team with a grudge against Godzilla for killing her commander. Her thirst for revenge feels shallow, and thus doesn't quite engage, though Tanaka does a good job with what she's given. Shōsuke Tanihara is likable as Hajime Kudo, but he also isn't given enough to work with beyond being the self-taught nerdy inventor with low ambitions brought into extraordinary circumstances. Series veteran Yuriko Hoshi returns to play Professor Yoshino Yoshizawa, and unfortunately her talents are mostly underutilized, though it is no less great to see her back. And finally there is Masato Ibu as Motohiko Sugiura, the anti-G team director with a dark secret. He also plays the type as the corrupt authority figure, but Ibu does give him a little nuance. There's also a kid, Jun, played by Hiroyuki Suzuki, who is the first to stumble upon the Meganulon threat. While he has a large presence in the first act, he disappears from the rest of the movie, leaving you to wonder why the character was included to begin with. As with most Godzilla flicks, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus is most entertaining when the monsters are on screen, though it suffers even in this regard. The Godzilla 2000 design is reused and looks just as good, but also retains the same blank expression that makes him feel somewhat artificial. The film contains a few memorable sequences with him, the highlight being Godzilla's fight with a swarm of Meganula. Despite some shoddy CGI, it's visually compelling and forces Godzilla to employ some creative tactics to rid himself of the pests. Aside from this, the Meganulon, while a nice throwback to the original Rodan, make for a rather bland antagonist, though a scene where a couple gets attacked stands out for how shockingly brutal it is. Megaguirus is a decent enough design, but her execution is lacking and not very convincing even by previous film standards. The battle between her and Godzilla is a mixed bag, entertaining but full of one too many humorous moments that conflict with the more serious tone of the rest of the film. The The special effects are about on par with the previous film, though suffers in some ways thanks to a reduced budget. Model work is convincing during wide shots, but close-ups do them no favors. The CGI also fares no better, though is less jarring this time around. Where Godzilla vs. Megaguirus does truly excel though is the soundtrack. While new to the franchise, the score by Michiru Oshima is easily the best thing about the movie, and her Godzilla theme is a worthy successor to Ifukube. It commands your attention, big and brassy in an instantly memorable way that thoroughly conveys the destructive force Godzilla represents. Like all good music, it sticks in your mind long after the end credits have rolled. It's too bad that the rest of Godzilla vs. Megaguirus is so unremarkable. Looking past the intriguing initial setup, you'll find just another Godzilla movie. The kind that is enjoyable for fans, but aside from the amazing score, leaves no lasting impression on the mind. Any innovations it employs are surface level, serving a fairly generic story that both the franchise and the genre has seen countless times already. It's got its moments, but as a whole, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus is one of the King's more forgettable adventures. For more reviews and opinions on all things Godzilla, subscribe and stay tuned to Up From the Depths.